Andy?
Yep.
All right, boys, we're going to start. I'd like to call the Gurnee Village Board regular meeting of December 3rd, 2018 to order. Roll call, please, Andy.
Jacobs. Present. Ross.
Here.
Garner.
Here.
Balmas.
Present.
Hood. Here. Thorstenson.
Here.
6-0.
All right, thank you. And we have, as our guest tonight, Wolf Pack 7, who's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So, boys and girls, if you want to just stand in the center.
Wolfpack, all Wolfpack.
All right, boys, whenever you're ready.
Scout salute.
Excellent job, boys. Very articulate, nice and loud. Thank you. And I hope you enjoyed your tour tonight. And I understand if you can't stay for the meeting, but we'd love to have your company. All right, we're going to move on to public comment. If you'd like to come to the microphone and state your name, your address is optional, and then we'd ask you to sign up in the back so we have accurate spellings for our minutes.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Tice, and I am a resident of Gurnee. Last week, the Chicago Tribune reported that the coal plant in Waukegan dumps most of its waste in unlined pits, allowing harmful levels of arsenic, chromium, lead, and other heavy metals to flow into our groundwater. The Chicago Tribune wrote, "Federal and state officials have failed for decades to hold corporations accountable for millions of tons of ash and other harmful byproducts created by burning coal to generate electricity. I have well water at my home, which is near Green Bay and Sunset Avenue, only a few miles due east of the Energy coal power plant. Is my drinking water safe? This is the second environmental hazard to come to light this fall. The first being carcinogenic ethylene oxide emitted by Vantage Specialty Chemicals a few blocks from my home. As with the ethylene oxide issue, I assume Mayor Kovarik and the Board of Trustees will yield to the EPA and Illinois EPA and allow these agencies to handle the coal ash disposal issue. But the EPA and the Illinois EPA have failed our community. The EPA has not updated its regulations of ethylene oxide since it was reclassified as carcinogenic to humans, and has failed to enforce the proper disposal of toxic coal ash. From the EPA's website, they are at the front line of environmental protection and policing, but time and again, they failed to protect us. And worse, not only do they hurt our communities, they protect the corporations that are abusing us. They set guidelines so low that they allow toxins to reach harmful levels. These corporations can operate with impunity because they are following regulations and are permitted to do so. The Lake County Health Department appears to be getting involved, but they don't have the authority to do anything. However, the Village of Gurnee has home rule. We can protect ourselves. We can pass ordinances to make it a safe community to live in. That is why I propose the Village of Gurnee hire an environmental engineer, an authority that is actually on the front lines in Gurnee. This person would be aware of the regulated toxins in our community. This person would work with the Building Safety Division and attend building inspections. This person would advise the Planning and Zoning Division on existing or potential risks. This person would have a budget for testing air and water quality. This person would review regulations for gaps and identify potential hazards. This person would be informed and able to have open discussions with residents. This person would be the village's liaison to the EPA and Illinois EPA, advocating for our community. When these agencies are failing us, this person would advise the mayor and the board on appropriate actions to protect our community. We should not have to rely on the Chicago Tribune to break every environmental tragedy. We should be proactive. The future of America is one where people care about air and water quality. 1 in 3 people get cancer in the U.S. We now have the science to figure out why. Environmental concerns are not going away. They are only going to increase. The village needs to keep its residents reasonably safe from harm. It is not reasonable to expect the federal government to manage our local issues and regulations. That is the purpose of local government. It is the duty of our community leaders to act and not continue to pass the buck to the EPA. If no one in the village is educated in these areas or able to address these concerns, then we need to bring in additional resources to look out for the environmental future of Gurnee and its population. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? If you'd state your name for the record and then sign the sheet in the back.
It was already signed in. My name is
Thank
Cindy
you.
Kraft, 36195 North Douglas Terrace in Gurnee. I am talking today about the Aldi that's going to be going in on the lot that is on Grand and finishing out on Woodland Terrace. We all know that tax-wise it makes sense to have something built there, and Gurnee wants to annex it. We know Aldi is coming in. After looking at their plans, and we had been to the zoning board meeting, my questions had come up of traffic safety with children. So I did some looking and found some very interesting statistics for children safety in traffic areas. All vehicles have a blind zone, whether it be a small blind zone of 3 to 4 feet up to the delivery trucks that can have as high as 10 to 12 feet above as well as around the front of the vehicle. They're not going to see children. That's a safety issue. It's a relatively busy area for school buses and school children. Over 80% of the front rollovers or front traffic accidents are with larger size vehicles, trucks, SUVs coming in and out of parking lots. I will give you my statistics. One of the things I looked up is now we have this, we have to realistically look at viable options for the safety of that area and the people in the area. I'm not only talking as somebody who lives on Douglas Terrace and who's a mom, although my kids are all grown. I have over 35 years of operating room trauma experience. I can tell you what a vehicle does to a child, very graphically if you choose. One of the things that I had specifically looked at was what would be some relatively simple, inexpensive things that we could institute immediately as we are building this facility. First one came to mind, blind spot mirrors. You have them in a couple other spots in Gurnee with blind driveways. They're not that expensive. This would give larger vehicles an opportunity to see who's on the sidewalk in front of them and being able to check for children in that area. It's a very simple, basic thing to do. The second thing is do post a sign at the exit. You know, this is a children neighborhood, watch out for children. You know, they got the little blinker light signs, another viable option. And thirdly, there should not be any car or any kind of parking from Hutchins Road to Edgewood Parkway, which is the first street west on Woodland Terrace, Therefore, you're lessening the risk of a child running out between cars and getting into traffic. If we don't have the cars there, there's less things that will cover and shield a child from oncoming traffic. And I can give you my...
Yes, give it to me. I'll make sure it's part of public record.
Thank you.
And those are some very good suggestions. Thank you for the research. All right, we'll make sure it's entered into the record. Other public comment tonight? You'd like to come to the microphone? Again, just state your name and then sign in the back so we get the correct spelling.
Yes, my name is David Day. I live at 36119 North Douglas Terrace. I am also concerned about the Aldi going in across the street from my house. They are proposing to bring trucks along Woodland Terrace. I have worked in logistics for 16 years, and I am still trying to figure out how they're going to be able to bring a 18-wheeler onto that street off of Hutchins, when the simple solution would be only to build a proper entrance and exit off of Grand Avenue, instead of coming through the bank existing entrance and exit, which is basically a single lane, and all your proposal for making all these little lines on the bank property at Fifth Third Bank. It's just a real easy solution. People going eastbound on Grand, they're going to have to go on Hutchins because you can't go across the street and build a light. They're going to have to, all right? But trucks don't need to come onto there. Can you imagine a truck trying to turn onto Hutchins off of Grand or turn right onto Hutchins off of Woodland Terrace? And if there's traffic there, they're going to be sitting there for a while. And at 4 o'clock, 9 o'clock, there's traffic there, trust me. I live there. And now we're going to increase traffic by increasing customers coming in and out. It's the simplest solution. But nobody has proposed, and they won't do anything to westbound Grand. Those people are going 45, 50 miles an hour. How are they going to stop for that bank entrance? That's all I have to say.
Thank you, and we'll address that when we get to Aldi's on our, under new business. Ma'am, state your name and then sign in the back, please.
Susan Diaz, 4755 Providence Road. Sorry, back to the ethylene oxide. I'm actually a scientist, but I don't want to talk about the science because we already know that ethylene oxide is carcinogenic. What I do want to say is, just looking back at the history, if you look at W.R. Grace and asbestos and vermiculite and Johns Mansville and asbestos and Pacific Power and Electric, nobody knew this stuff was carcinogenic back then. We don't want to wait 20 years to find out what we already know when people start to come down with cancer. So if you guys have any power over your village, obviously this is a burden on you. And I'm sorry that it ends up being you guys, but obviously the EPA hasn't really helped out here, as they haven't in the past with other situations. So I just want to implore you that you have a chance to make history here. I mean, this is going to show what you guys can actually do, and I do believe you guys have the power, and I'm sure you're doing all kinds of research. So I want to thank you for that, because I know you have your citizens' health and safety in heart. You're all citizens yourselves, so thank you. But I don't want this issue to go unnoticed or forgotten. So thank you for all the work that you've done, and thank you for all the work you're going to be doing for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ryan Horth, I live at 4487 Sheffield Court, and I want to talk about ethylene oxide again, short this time. So this week, the Tribune published another article on ethylene oxide emissions in Illinois, and this article provided a history of these emissions and how the industry has benefited from its cozy relationship with the EPA. The article reveals how one source of these emissions was allowed to go unfiltered for decades, In 1994, the EPA proposed stronger controls for ethylene oxide emissions. This included control of ethylene oxide chamber exhaust emissions, which is one of 3 ways that it is emitted from the sterilization plants. By the late 1990s, several major explosions had occurred at ethylene oxide sterilization plants, including one at a Sterigenics plant in California, I believe. The cause of these explosions was gross negligence on the part of the companies involved. For example, in the case of Sterigenics, they failed to make required engineering changes that would have prevented the explosion, and they put a maintenance worker in charge of the facility who had no knowledge of the danger of ethylene oxide. Then they failed to provide any training to him on the danger of ethylene oxide. And then he was given authorization to override key maintenance procedures that prevented explosions. And unsurprisingly, he overrode a key maintenance procedure at the facility, and this, combined with the lack of required engineering changes, caused an explosion, which put the facility out of use for like 18 months, I believe. The details of this event are described in a government report that you can find online. It was linked in the Tribune article. And it's a story of gross negligence on the part of Sterigenics. After these explosions caused by their own negligence, these companies went to the EPA through their lobbying organization, the Ethylene Oxide Sterilization Association, or EOSA. They went to the EPA and they argued that controlling the chamber exhaust emissions is too dangerous, and they should just be allowed to vent these emissions straight into the air. The lobbying group then gave the EPA recommendations for what they felt were appropriate regulations. The EPA accepted these recommendations, as they typically do. So essentially, the polluters told the EPA what level of regulation they thought was appropriate, and the EPA put that in their final rule. The full picture of what happened is clear. The companies were grossly negligent, causing explosions at their facilities. They used this gross negligence to argue against stricter emissions controls and instead allowed them to continue emitting. Their negligence was used as an excuse to continue poisoning the people living around their facilities. I will also note that today we are being told we should not ban ethylene oxide, and more emissions controls are the answer. But 20 years ago, the lobbying arm of the industry said more controls were too dangerous. The only way this makes sense is if you realize the industry will say whatever it needs to get what it wants at that time. Back then, they were fighting off greater controls, so those controls were too dangerous. Today, they're fighting off a total ban, so those controls are just fine. Not long after the EPA's original regulations in 1994, California and a handful of other states passed much more stringent requirements. In California, the requirements were 99.9% reduction at all 3 emission points, whereas the EPA required only 99% reduction at 1 out of the 3 emission points. The science is clear. There is no safe level of ethylene oxide exposure, and thus no safe level of emissions. It is very likely the industry would have moved past ETO sterilization a long time ago, if not for their very active lobbying. We do not yet know whether the state of Illinois will ban ETO for non-medical uses, but if they do not act soon, we must be prepared to enact such a ban in our village. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Go ahead.
Good evening. I'm here to speak about ethylene oxide again.
Your name?
And my name's Brittany Sloan, and I live at 388 Tanglewood Drive in the Country Trail subdivision. And I'm again asking for the village, I'd like to see neighborhood level testing for the ethylene oxide, what's actually in our neighborhoods, neighborhood by neighborhood. I'd also like to see the board apply some pressure to see that there are actually some state level changes at the IEPA. I'm not comfortable seeing this issue punted to the IEPA or to the US EPA because we're not seeing leadership there. So I would like to see leadership on a local level. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Annette O'Connell, and my address is listed. Good evening, elected officials of Gurnee. Approximately a month ago, the town of Gurnee was made aware of poisonous gases being emitted into the air. I will not repeat the facts as they have been presented to you from several concerned individuals. I will say that I'm disappointed in your indifference. If you truly felt that your constituents were in any danger, you would have acted and responded quite differently. Let me just point out that you have been given a great gift. The situation has been brought into your awareness for a reason. You have an opportunity to shine. and truly make a difference in this community, in this state, and even in this country. The Willowbrook Sterigenics situation has even been placed before this, giving you a template and resources to guide you. It couldn't be any easier. I had to write it down, I wouldn't remember. You all have been given free will to make the choices that you make. All of you. Please, just think about that for a minute. Put business and commerce and money aside and draw only upon your heartfelt feelings about this situation. Ask yourselves, what am I capable of? What footprint do I want to leave here once I'm gone? Can you honestly say, I did the right thing? I did my best? Because ultimately, our lives, our children's lives, are in your hands. It's up to you how bloody you want your hands to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, my name's Joe Roman. I live at 36158 Douglas Terrace, and I'm here to speak on the Aldi project. There's one thing about the Aldi project that's dramatically different from every other development project that the Village of Gurnee has overseen along the Grand Avenue corridor. The thing that sets this project apart from every other is that the primary entrance exit is via a secondary residential street. All of the other businesses in the corridor are accessed via arterial and primary streets. All the other, this is a situation that not only causes grave concern for myself, but was also a grave concern for members of the Gurnee Planning and Zoning Commission. If you review the transcript of the public meeting, you can verify their misgivings yourself. This board is not only being asked to approve the annexation of the Aldi property, but also the secondary residential street from the Hutchins Road to the property. The village then intends to designate this secondary residential street as a truck route. Furthermore, it is impractical for the village to maintain this street, so they will pay cash to Warren Township to perform this task for them. I worry that this is being done so that accountability to the residents can be avoided. In the past, the village has been very concerned about commercial traffic on secondary residential streets. A good example of your attention to this issue involves the Anthony Buick GMC and the Gurnee Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram. Prior to granting a permit to these businesses, the village mandated they agree not to conduct test drives on secondary residential streets. This proposal with Aldi is out of character with past practices and is quite puzzling. There are three primary problems with the current design of this project. First and foremost is the truck entrance to Aldi coincides with a bus stop for both Warren Township and Woodland school systems. Each day, multiple buses pick up and drop off children at this corner. Aldi says that this will not be a problem since their store does not open until 9 a.m. Yet they also say that typically employees arrive at the store at 7 a.m. Why arrive so early if not to unload trucks during these school pickup hours? The second problem is both truck traffic and customer traffic using Woodland Terrace west of Aldi as a cut-through. Aldi has publicly stated that they can control their own trucks not to do this, but they have no control over third-party suppliers. It does not take a lot of imagination to see that delivery trucks of milk, soda, and beer will cut through the neighborhood. This would be especially so if in the future Aldi would share a vendor with the mobile station, Saludos, or the backyard steak pit. This is part of a family-oriented Woodland Terrace that is not being annexed, so the village would not be and could not be responsible for enforcing abuses. Lastly is the question of whether semi-trucks will be able to negotiate the turn from Woodland Terrace on into Aldi without running over the curb and destroying residential landscaping. Aldi's traffic consultant has testified that a skilled driver can successfully make this turn, but was unable to state that drivers of average or beginner skills could be trusted to do likewise. Village officials and staff have explained to us that each of these issues are beyond their control. I would argue that each of these problems is a result of a flawed design. Moreover, the village has already solved each of these problems. You need go no further than across the street and look at the model created by Walgreens and Aurora Health Center. Need another model? Go diagonally across the street and look at the model of the Great Lakes Credit Union and the Great Escape. In both these cases, two dissimilar businesses have cooperated with each other for their mutual benefit and the benefit of the neighborhood. If you don't like either of these two solutions, look at the Hunt Club corridor, where the village built a frontage road to control traffic patterns. The point is, there are better ways to do this. I respectfully ask that the Aldi annexation be tabled until such time that the design flaws in their plan can be fixed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll address some of those questions when we get to new business.
Hello, good evening. My name is Yolanta, and I live in the Kensington Court community, just right next to the village. And I'm here to speak once again on ethylene oxide emissions in our community. Exactly 31 days ago, Lake County residents found out about the alarming high levels of a known carcinogen, ethylene oxide, being emitted into the air by Medline and Vantage Specialty Chemicals near our community via a news story published by the Chicago Tribune. Since that time, many concerned Lake County residents have researched this harmful gas and have met as a community to discuss this critical issue that impacts public health. Based on our research, there is absolutely no dispute in the greater scientific community that ethylene oxide is a harmful carcinogen. Research dating back decades shows the dangers of ETO. The U.S. Department of Labor's Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, describes ethylene oxide in the following manner, and I quote, "Unfortunately, ETO possesses several physical and health hazards that merit special attention. ETO is flammable and highly reactive. Acute exposure to ETO gas may result in respiratory irritation and lung injury, headache, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, shortness of breath, among others. Chronic exposure has been associated with the occurrence of cancer, reproductive effects, mutagenic changes, neurotoxicity, and sensitization. OSHA requires that workers who maintain equipment at ETO-emitting facilities wear respirators. Unfortunately, the public who lives near these emitting facilities does not have the same protections in place, and their lives are concerned. A fellow Chicago area suburban community in Willowbrook, Illinois, and its surrounding area also shares the same concerns we do about the alarming high levels of ETO emissions. Over the past 34 years, Willowbrook citizens have been exposed to high levels of ETO emissions by a company called Sterigenics, which is in very close proximity to their schools, their homes, and other communal places. Last Thursday evening, on November 29th, the citizens of Willowbrook had the opportunity to meet with the EPA in a public town hall forum, a town hall meeting which they demanded to discuss this vital issue. They used the opportunity to ask questions and demand answers from their elected officials and from the agency that was supposed to protect them. I would like to summarize some of the key points that were discussed and presented at that town hall meeting last week to educate our esteemed Village of Gurnee leadership on the points. First and foremost, the seriousness of the problem in Willowbrook and in Lake County was publicly acknowledged by the EPA. It was confirmed that our elevated risk levels are indeed alarming. Although the EPA is still unsure as to how high the risk levels are and how high they go, they have confirmed that there is indeed a cause for alarm. That was fact and cleared by the EPA. From a public health perspective, a medical doctor who presented at the forum on behalf of the EPA confirmed as well that no amount of ETA is safe to breathe in. Also another fact. The Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry that was present said that ethanol oxide is worse than anyone previously realized, confirming once again that there are no safe levels of this toxic gas. It was presented that health risks are deemed higher in children. ETO used during sterilization because it attacks and damages DNA of organisms, including humans. Other key things that were presented at this meeting, and I'm just listing bullet points, it was confirmed that ETO causes genetic mutation, although the EPA does not know exactly how, when, and why ETO mutates DNA to cause cancer. They do know that it does. Due to the lower air dispersal, it was also revealed that concentrations of ETO is higher at night. Since ETO is very, very explosive, the fire department made an appearance at the meeting to discuss their safety protocols to ensure that the community is safe, because there's this business working with this gas. And ETO concentrations can be higher inside buildings than outside. That was also revealed. Exercising outdoors increases your risk since your breathing rate increases with physical activity. A person who exercises takes heavier and quicker breaths, thus the increased risk. ETO can indeed penetrate plastic, cardboard, and concrete. These are all facts that were discussed at the meeting last Thursday. And ETO doesn't automatically break down in the air. Instead, it blows away to other communities, and it takes time to break down. So a common phrase from Thursday's evening meeting in the town hall forum from the EPA was, quote, "We don't know." There's a lot of questions that were asked, and the answers were, "We don't know." The EPA acknowledged that it doesn't know how to adequately measure the amounts of ETO in the air. So they even have concerns on how to measure this toxic gas. So what I found the most disturbing from the meeting, last Thursday, was that emitting facilities self-report their emissions, but these self-reported quantities are not audited by the EPA. So the EPA is basically allowing a massive amount of this gas to be emitted into our air, but they lack definitive answers to basic questions around human safety. So let me reassure the Village of Gurnee leadership that I would much rather be doing something else this evening with my little, very precious little time that I have, but instead I am here before you once again because this issue is critical, and its magnitude should be properly understood by you and every member of our community. Science clearly shows us that there is no safe level of this toxic gas. The time for urgent action is now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, since we did have public comment and I was going to report out to the board, I'll do it now. The village has not ruled out anything or any course of action. This past Wednesday, Chief Kavanaugh, Village Administrator Pat Mutes, Village Attorney Brian Winter, myself, and Trustee Garner went downtown and had a lengthy meeting directly with the EPA on Wednesday with the same people that were at the Thursday meeting. They were not arrogant, they were not condescending. They went through in great detail the timeline, the data collection, the measurements, and how their modeling works, and what their next steps are in the process that they're going through. Very educational, a lot of science. And then today, this afternoon, Pat Mutes, myself, and we were joined by our elected officials, health department and state and federal elected officials with the EPA meeting, quite a large group. And we had 6 or 7 scientists there besides the second in charge of the EPA, which conducted the Willowbrook meeting. And then today, this afternoon, myself and Pat Mutes, along with Congressman Schneider, representatives from Senator Duckworth, Senator Durbin, our state senator Melinda Bush, and County Board Commissioner Steve Carlson and County Board Chair Sandy Hart spent quite a bit of time with Vantage in touring the plant and going from point of entry with the railroad cars all the way through outside in the cold. A detailed, very detailed of how everything operates, and then the science. They had their chemical engineers and their scientists, so they kind of explained their process, you know, what they go through. Most of the people from Vantage do live here. They send their kids to the same school we do, so they had a lot of information. Of course, any measurements they do need to be validated by the EPA. But I have reams of notes, so I need to organize them. Pat and I and John and Brian and Greg were learning a lot of words we didn't even know existed, but getting a handle on them and being able to put some context. So I do plan to get with each of you, you know, go through the whole timeline, you know, how the context around the statements that were made previously that were restated, that were said at the Willowbrook meeting, how the EPA explained that to us, the measurements, and some of the auditing that is in place, so that I can get you guys up to speed on the whole process from beginning to end and how this is all working. So despite what was said, there's a lot of time and effort being put into this issue. So that's my report to the board that I would have given later in the meeting. So I am closing the floor to public comment, and I will move on to our regular agenda. First off is approval of the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee Balmas, second by trustee Jacobs. Roll call, please, Andy.
Jacobs. Aye. Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
Balmas.
Aye.
Hood. Yes. Thorstenson.
Yes.
6 aye.
All right, motion carries. Patrick, please read the consent agenda into the record.
Item number 1, approval of the minutes from the November 26, 2018 Village Board meeting. Item number 2, approval of Fire Medic John McNeil's request to participate in the village's tuition assistance program in pursuit of an associate's degree in fire science from the College of Lake County. Item number 3, approval of ordinance 2018-78, approving a plat of easement grant and plat of vacation to the Village of Gurnee at Greenleaf Center and Greenleaf Center East. Item number 4, approval of payroll for period ending November 23, 2018 in the amount of $833,767.28. Item number 5, approval of bills for period ending December 3, 2018 in the amount of $124,228.09.
Thank you, Patrick. Do I have a motion to approve the consent
So
agenda as read into the record? Motion by trustee Ross, second by trustee Thorstenson. Roll call, please.
Jacobs. Aye. Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
Balmas.
Aye.
Hood. Yes. Thorstenson.
Yes.
6 aye.
Motion carries. We'll move on to petitions and communications. The first is approval of a proclamation designating December 2018 as National Drunk and Drug Driving Prevention Month in the Village of Gurnee. Motor vehicle crashes kill 37,133 people nationally during 2017, and 29% of those deaths involved a driver impaired by alcohol, and the December holiday season is traditionally one of the most deadly times of the year for impaired driving. And for thousands of families across the state and the nation, holidays are a time to remember loved ones lost. And organizations across the state and the nation are joined with the Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over campaign that foster public awareness of the dangers of impaired driving and law enforcement efforts to curb impaired driving. And the police department of the Village of Gurnee is proud to partner with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the Illinois Department of Transportation, Bureau of Safety Programs and Engineering, and advocacy groups in that effort to make our streets and roadways safer. Now therefore I, Christina Kvarg, Mayor of Gurnee, Illinois, do hereby proclaim December 2018 as Impaired Driving Prevention Month in Gurnee, and do hereby call upon all our citizens and organizations to promote awareness of the impaired driving problem, to support programs and policies to reduce the incidence of impaired driving, and to promote safer and healthier behaviors regarding the use of alcohol and other drugs this December holiday season, as well as throughout the year. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Motion by trustee Gurnee, second by trustee Jacobs. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it is National Drunken Drug Driving Prevention Month. The other communication is a reminder that the holiday train will be here Thursday night, December 6th, along Depot Road. A lot of festivities are planned. I will be traveling for work, so Trustee Hood is going to fill in for me up on the train. And we encourage all of you to come out. It's a great cause, supporting the Northern Illinois Food Bank, which has a lot of needs this time of year, and it's just a fun family activity. So that's a reminder. 5:50 is when the train is supposed to pull in. Yeah, and then old business, anything else?
No, none tonight.
All right, then we are going to move on to new business. First item is approval of ordinance 2018-79, annexing and rezoning a 2.5-acre parcel located at 18824 West Grand Avenue. I assume we'll do a presentation for the overall project and then go through each of these.
Yep, I'll kind of give you a quick summary, and then the petitioners here is going to run you through a PowerPoint presentation. So all 5 items under new business here relate to the proposed Aldi's. Summary of the project: they're looking at a 21,000 square foot store, 7-day-a-week operation from 9 to 8, 97 parking spaces, so they're good in that regard. Below grade loading dock screened by a 6-foot tall concrete masonry brick wall. On the north side of the building, solid 5-foot tall wood fence along the west property line. Trash enclosure back by the loading dock. Landscaping they're in good shape with. Deliveries from the site would be from Woodland Terrace. They estimate between 8 and 10 trucks Monday through Friday, 1 to 2 on Saturday and Sunday. A couple wall signs and a ground sign along Grand Avenue, which are within what's allowed in the sign code. And then access via the shared right-in, right-out on Grand with Fifth Third Bank, and then a full access from Woodland Terrace on the north side. So you have the annexation, and then you have a couple variances. One variance for a reduction in transparency percentage for the north and south walls. Oh, that's a special use permit, for the transparency. Also a special use permit related to reduction in the percentage of green space interior to the parking lot. And then a variation to encroach into the 25-foot Grand Avenue setback, and another for to allow 2 curb cuts to be closer than what is allowed by the code. So those are the 5 items before you tonight. I'll turn it over to the petitioner now if they'd like to run through the project in more detail and the PowerPoint presentation.
Would you like us here, sir?
Yep.
Yes, and state your name for the record, please.
Great. My name's John Schottish. I'm with Kensington Development Partners. We're the retail developer proposing the Aldi's, the subject property. First of all, I just want to really thank everyone, thank all the trustees and the mayor for being here tonight and your time. We really appreciate it. Also want to thank staff. I think we've worked with staff for the last 11 months, and they've been tough but fair, but we really appreciate it in the process. I think it was a really good idea and recommendation from the economic developer and the village to meet with the neighbors. I think it was in October. We had a presentation with our site plan and got a lot of feedback and learned a lot from that meeting. And I think I just want to highlight a few takeaways, and then we'll quickly run through the project. But obviously we'd like to make everyone happy, but when you have commercial development near residential, there are some negative connotations to that. So we're trying to do our best and be good neighbors. I think one thing that we changed after that is we wanted to make sure as safe as possible, so we eliminated the left turn lane for trucks out of the development, and we'll make sure there's proper signage for that, and our traffic consultants here could discuss that in more detail. We also wanted to enhance the screening to neighbors to the west and the north, so we did that by additional landscaping, especially the north. We have more land area, so we're able to do 2 layers of landscaping on both sides of the proposed detention, and the west able to enhance that and just make it so we really don't want to be visible at all from the north and to the west as much as we can. And so we try to accomplish that with our landscape architect, and that was truly his challenge. What we put in front of him is to make it as strong as possible. We also wanted to bring down the noise as much as possible to neighbors to the north. So that was able to be accomplished by the landscaping, but also we decided to make a change and added a masonry wall north of the loading dock. Some of the feedback from the neighbors was we should really have a bike rack and promote that, so we incorporated that on the new site plan. You'll see a lot of the questions were surrounding traffic, so we had a traffic study, but we realized it was important to update that traffic study and add more level of detail so we're better prepared and make sure we're doing everything properly. And the most important thing out of everything is really the safety of the neighbors to the north and to the west, and brought to our attention, obviously, the bus stop, which obviously we physically can't relocate it, but we quickly brought it to the village's attention or vice versa, and they've been in contact. I'll let them speak to it more with the local school district because we want to make sure everything's as safe as possible. If we could go to the next slide. Just to get high level, that's the subject property of the northwest quadrant of Grand and Hutchins, and we could go to the next one, please. It's currently unincorporated Lake County, and in general commercial, a grocery store is a permitted use within that general commercial. It's also in the comprehensive land use plan for Gurnee. It's proposed to be commercial business use, which is grocery store is also permitted use within that. So we're moving forward with rezoning it or zoning it to C2, consistent with the comprehensive land use plan, which also a grocery store is a permitted use. Obviously, it's important to us and to Aldi. We really wanted a Gurnee address to annex into Gurnee for the address, but also for all the great services and make it a healthier, safe environment that Gurnee provides. The next slide, please. I'm going to turn over to Tom Howell. He's in charge of real estate in the Wisconsin division, which one big portion of that is Lake County, Illinois. Handles all the expansion. Hand over to Tom.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Tom Howell, Director of Real Estate for Aldi out of the Oak Creek office at 9342 South 13th Street, Oak Creek, Wisconsin, 53154. Before I touch base about Aldi, I just want to say thank you to everybody at the village and the board meetings that we've gone through, and also to the neighbors that attended the several meetings. I think we've done a good job with the things that are in our control to design a site plan, landscape plan, and building architectural design to complement as many of those items that you brought to our attention. And we've spent a lot of time, money, and effort to address as many of the concerns that we can and incorporate all those plan details. We feel like we've proactively approached this project from day one, and we've proactively approached the village of Gurnee, and we've worked in this market for the last 6 years to try to bring an Aldi grocery store. So to be here tonight is an exciting moment for me. It brings us closer to those next steps. But if you're unfamiliar with Aldi, Aldi's a limited assortment grocery discount store that offers their exclusive brands in their locations. Our product range right now ranges 90% of our own exclusive brands and 10% of our national iconic brands, such as Tide, Coca-Cola, those things you can't live without. And Aldi's has grown drastically over the years as retailers have continued to slow down or not expand or shut down. Aldi's has been one of those retailers that has prospered over the years and continued to grow and expand their portfolio and also go back and remodel their existing locations. We're a retailer that's a Class A retailer that's invested into their communities and actually takes the time to operate a very high quality, high efficient grocery store. Our hours of operation are Monday through Sunday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. I can answer all technical questions in regards to operations. I was in operations with the company before I did real estate for the company. And I know a lot of our operational items, and I work with them very closely on the real estate end to make sure we turn over a good store and hand it over and take care of the facilities. That's my job, and that's my role. So when I do answer those questions, I do have hand-in-hand experience with our operational team. And we do look to hire about 8 to 10 full-time employees with this project itself. And as we continue to go through, if there's any questions that you have about Aldi in general, whether it's how you work the quarter system, or just bagging your groceries and the reasons why we do things a little bit different, I'd be pleased to answer those questions for you tonight. If you want to go to the next slide, Javier is going to go through some of the engineering portions of the traffic.
Good evening. My name is Javier Milan. I'm a senior consultant of KLOA Incorporated, and we were retained to conduct the traffic study or traffic evaluation for the Aldi. As proposed, the site will be developed with a 21,000 square foot Aldi grocery store and providing approximately 98 off-street parking spaces. Access to the proposed Aldi grocery store will be provided via cross-access to the Fifth Third Bank parking lot, which has a right-in, right-out access drive of Grand Avenue, and a full ingress-egress access drive of Woodland Terrace that will be aligned opposite Douglas Terrace, approximately 35 feet west of the Fifth Third Bank. The proposed access will provide one inbound lane and one outbound lane with outbound movements under stop sign control. I think it's important for me to point out that given Grand Avenue is designated as a strategic regional arterial by the state of Illinois, and a right-in, right-out access drive was already provided serving the bank, IDOT will not permit an additional access drive on Grand Avenue. Also, inspection of the site indicates that the subject property was clearly designed to share the right-in, right-out along Grand Avenue. Apparently, access was not properly recorded, but after months of working with the neighbor, the developer was able to agree on a reciprocal access easement at the right-in, right-out, along with proper striping and stop signs to the Fifth Third lot to improve safety. The development has also granted the neighbor reciprocal access through the development, so if Fifth Third ever gets redeveloped, it will give Gurnee the opportunity to consolidate access points along Woodland Terrace. Based on historical data that we have collected and we have received also from Aldi, the proposed Aldi store generates a low volume of daily truck traffic. It's approximately 8 to 10 trucks per week. And given the existing weight limit restriction immediately west of Douglas Terrace, trucks will travel east to Hutchins Road and then south to Grand Avenue. Notwithstanding this, Aldi will instruct and direct their suppliers on the truck route and will also install signs prohibiting truck traffic from traveling in Woodland Terrace west of the site. I would like to talk a little bit about the traffic patterns that were observed when we go out there and do counts. It is anticipated that 45% of the site-generated traffic will utilize the existing right-in, right-out access drive on Grand Avenue, and 55% will utilize the full movement access drive, with an anticipated 5% of that traffic traveling to the west on Woodland Terrace. That 5% that I mentioned traveling to the west, it's in essence local traffic only, so it's, and I know you know it better than me, but you look at the area, there's a lot of residential to the north and to the west. So we certainly anticipate that some of that traffic will come from that residential area. And also, there was some concern regarding traffic cutting through the west, whether it's trucks or additional traffic. Given that there is no traffic signal at the intersection of Grand Avenue with Greenwood Drive, traffic coming from the west will find it easier to turn left on Hutchins Road where there is a traffic signal, and then left onto Woodland Terrace. If you could go to the next slide, please. So, in order to ensure safe and efficient internal intersection with the Fifth Third Bank, we recommended the following modifications. So, stop signs and a painted stop bar should be installed on all approaches except the inbound approach from Grand Avenue. Why? This will ensure that no backups extend onto Grand Avenue. The southbound approach from the drive-through lanes should be narrowed via restriping in order for them to better line up and direct vehicles southbound at the proposed four-legged intersection. And lastly, one-way and do not enter signs should be provided at the drive-through exit lanes. So based on the traffic analysis conducted, the following was concluded. The proposed Aldi store will generate a low volume of daily truck traffic. The proposed cross-access to the east with the Fifth Third Bank will allow site traffic to access the development directly from Grand Avenue, reducing the traffic traversing on Hutchins Road and Woodland Terrace. The cross-access connection between the Aldi site and the bank parking lot was always planned and will not adversely impact the drive-through traffic or the bank traffic entering and exiting off Grand Avenue. And the study area intersections have sufficient reserve capacity to accommodate the traffic projected to be generated by the proposed development. I'll hand it over to Matt Carey, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Matt Carey. I'm with Pinnacle Engineering Group out of Brookfield, Wisconsin, and we are the civil engineer that's helping out with the project. This is kind of more a zoomed-in site plan. What you're seeing here, north is to the right on this slide. The point of this slide is to really showcase the Woodland Terrace curb cut variance, which basically shows the two driveways that are located in somewhat close proximity to one another. That's the current bank driveway and then the new proposed Aldi driveway. And it's a little tough to see with the slide, but again, the main focus of the Aldi's driveway location was to be aligned with Douglas Terrace to the north. And this also showcases along the south side of the building there's a red circle. That's where the new proposed bike rack will be located on the site plan. Next slide, please. This is the Grand Avenue hardscape setback variance, which the team is seeking as part of this proposal. Again, north is to the right on this slide. In the southwest corner, you can see a blue crosshatch, the royal blue crosshatch. That's the area that we're meeting the setback requirement. And then as you make your way to the east, you can start to see a small sliver of red that gets up to about a 5-foot encroachment. That's the area where we're seeking the variance. The main reason for this is Aldi really is in need of the 97 parking stalls. And when you factor in the truck movement to get in and out of the dock at the north side of the site, and then also, if you look at the bank's site plan to the east, they have a driveway that we basically need to align with for obvious reasons and to lay out that south parking field. When you combine all those things, there really isn't another option. That's why we're seeking the variance. So, next slide, please. This is for a special use permit. This is for the amount of green space within the parking lot. It's hard to see, but there's a thin red line that basically outlines what's considered the parking lot itself. And then the green hatching you see there is where the green space is proposed. Per village zoning ordinance, we need 10%, and we're just short of that. We're at about 9.3%. Again, basically for the same reasons I mentioned in the previous slide, this is what we're up against with this one as well. Main reason is for the 97 parking stall count that Aldi needs to operate their facility. Next slide, please. One more. I just want to touch on the existing drainage and the proposed drainage for the site. I don't know if everyone's been out to the site or not, but there's kind of a small depression that's located along the west side of the site, closer to where the Linda Lane cul-de-sac is. And from my understanding is the water basically funnels to that depression and even ponds in some cases, and goes over the top of the embankment and actually goes down into the Linda Lane storm sewer system there. We're gonna obviously change that with our proposed grading plan, and basically it's going to be a drainage split where about a third of the site is going to go to the north and about 2/3 of the site is going to go to the south. There's a parking field on the east side of the building. That is all going to go to this dry detention basin that we have on the north side of the site. And just to clarify, a dry basin, that really means that in most days it's going to be dry. There won't be a wet bottom to it. It'll only fill up with water when there's an actual storm event, a rainfall event. And then the 2/3 of the site, the building and the south parking field, will all go to an underground chamber, which will discharge into the Grand Avenue. There's a ditch and there's a pipe, so there's adequate capacity to send the additional drainage there. Next slide, please. Now I'm just going to highlight some of the proposed landscaping that the landscaper Insight is proposing for the site. This is a colored rendering where you can see basically all the proposed plantings around all 4 sides of the site. The main emphasis, again, that John touched on earlier was the screening along the west elevation and then along the north elevation, basically providing that additional buffer for the adjacent residents. Next slide, please. This is the west elevation looking kind of from Linda Lane looking east towards the building. And what's proposed here is you can see there's a 5-foot board-on-board fence, several trees and evergreens, and then some shrubs as well to really provide as much of a natural buffer as we can and to screen out as much as we can as well. Next slide, please. And this is from the north looking south along Woodland Terrace. Again, it's basically a 3-layered screening approach with some trees out by the right-of-way from Woodland Terrace, some additional trees set back a little bit on the other side of the dry detention basin, and then also there's that concrete masonry wall that's going to screen out the trucks when they're in the loading dock position. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Tom to talk about the architecture for the building.
Just to touch base again about the building design with the architecture. As you look at the building elevations here, the south elevation, which would be facing Grand Avenue, and as you progress down, the north elevation, which would be the view from Woodland Terrace. As you can see on the elevation of the north, as we've incorporated the additional screen wall that John had mentioned earlier, and then we also incorporated the spandrel glass on the backside of the building, which we have the variance approval for the transparency for the sides of the building that we can discuss further if needed, if there's questions. And as we progress down to the east elevation, which faces the bank, and as you can see on the far right there, the truck dock on the far right on the east elevation is actually a recessed dock, and you can see the cutout from the actual grade itself. It's about 4 feet down from finished grade at the top level of the parking lot. And then the west elevation, the backside of the building, which would face Linwood, and also that is the elevation that the west elevation and the north elevation are the two elevations where they showed the extensive landscape plan with the screening that we incorporated and made adjustments. Tracy, if you go back, I think it was 1 or 2 slides, that would be the elevation as the truck dock, and then one back again, that would be the elevation with the wood fence along the west elevation there. If you go back to the elevations themselves, 3 slides forward, I just want to make sure that you can see the adjustments that we made for the neighborhood and a lot of the feedback that we attained from them. Also, the building itself and the materials, the front tower on the south elevation stands at 24 feet with the secondary tower at 20 feet. The architectural material and design, we're very proud of what we put together as a retailer. We use all masonry block with split face block, sandstone stone, Belden brick blend with accent bricks, and we also use Nishiha cement fiber boards. I have samples if you have questions if you'd like to see those, and also aluminum composite paneling on the tower elements of the sign itself. You can see all these architectural features at our new location that we opened just south of Fountain Square in Waukegan, Illinois, and I have actual pictures of this building because I know the rendering sometimes doesn't do justice with the 3D, or not having 3D imagery. So any questions you guys have about the elevation, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
That's really the end of the presentation. We have more slides if you have questions for us, but we thought we'd stop there, and we really appreciate your consideration and time.
All right. Tracy, is there anything you want to add that was missed, or?
No, I think they covered everything. They did go before the Planning and Zoning Board for some signage, but the Planning and Zoning Board has the final authority in that. Their signage does comply with code.
All right. Just to address some of the comments earlier and a little bit of history for the board, the county zoned this as commercial 70s, 80s, long before any of us were up here. And the state decided where the curb cuts were going to be, probably the last time they widened it, and that's it. We have absolutely no jurisdiction. We have to do what the state says on Grand Avenue. Unlike the large farmland that came in that was referenced that's further east of this, those were huge 100-acre tracts that came in under a PUD where we can design the whole site and kind of control the access. So when the bank came in and annexed to the village, we could only control the access on the site that was being annexed. So, we had this access on the Woodland Terrace. If at that time the other parcel had been annexed at the same time, we could have looked at both parcels, decided on the access, done it the way we typically do. And so that it wasn't a missed opportunity, it was an opportunity that wasn't there. So now we have the bank with their access. Now we have a request from the petitioner to annex this piece into the village. And there's only so much we can do with the access and nothing we can do on Grand. Now, we've had many discussions with the school. The school has always worked very closely with us on bus stops because of our snowplow routes. So there'll be some accommodation there that we're working through. And we've had several conversations with Sue Simpson because that is a township road. So the township has quite a bit of authority. The little piece of street will come into the village when we annex this. The rest of Woodland Terrace will remain in the township. We will be able to work with them. There's already some accommodations that the highway commissioner has suggested, and there'll probably be some things that we can do. So that's kind of the context of what the staff and what Aldi's was working with. So we do have a great relationship with the township, and we have a great relationship with the schools. So I think we'll be able to accommodate and mitigate, some of the concerns. But there wasn't anything we could do about Grand Avenue. So I know the trustees may have some questions for the developer or for Aldi's. So if you raise your hand, I'll recognize you. Trustee Thorstensen?
Thanks. So in the package, it specifically outlined a concern, a resident concern. I just wanted to know if we received any validation of a special needs bus in that area and where that stop is. It was a little hard for me to understand where that was. I don't know if you could point it out, Tracy, or if you have any update as to whether that is from the schools would also be a concern or one that would be moved.
My understanding is that, first of all, we did contact the transportation divisions of both school districts. My understanding is that that transportation division of the school districts also is over the special needs student. So they've been alerted as to this potential for development. And as they said, for their other buses, they would take that into consideration when they make their schedule for where the bus stops are set each year. Okay. I don't have any specific information. Again, my understanding also is, and this is, you have to probably talk directly to the school districts, but like I said, we did talk to the transportation divisions that they pick up the special needs student at their driveway.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Jacobs?
Sure. I have a couple of questions, and these pertain a little bit to the logistics and to the parking area. So if we can probably scroll back to the, first to the logistical area with regard to some of the neighbors' comments about the types of trucks that are going to be pulling into there. I don't think I heard anybody mention specifically when the deliveries are coming in. You mentioned 8 to 10 trucks per week. But are those delivery trucks or are those the 18-wheelers that the neighbors have the concerns about? And if they are 18-wheelers, can you show me how they're going to maneuver through the parking areas?
Sure, happy to.
Do you have a truck turning radius as one of your exhibits?
We do. The ones coming in and out.
Is it?
Here, you know what?
It's past miscellaneous. Sorry. It's,
you could use the mic.
It's past the miscellaneous if you keep going. That would be perfect.
In terms of the truck getting in and out of the site itself, this is the turn into the site off of Woodland Terrace. You can see where we're proposing basically between the two driveways, it would almost be like a median nose, and then you'd have two driveways. The median nose would end right at the right-of-way line to help get the truck in and out the width that it needs. And then for the movement, it's going to turn in, pull up to like the south edge of the site, and then basically back in. And then, Tracy, if you go one more, please. This is the movement out when it's in the dock, makes that left turn, and then another right onto Woodland Terrace.
So if I'm looking at this correctly, if there's cars in those parking places, the truck driver's going to have to be a pretty good jockey to get those trucks maneuvered and backed into the stalls.
Into any of the proposed parking spaces? This one, no problem. If you go back one more. Again, it's really the areas that you can see they're hatched out. That's why we're not proposing any curb or green space there. Another reason for the variance for the green space in the parking lot. Yeah, that'd be the only, I guess, spot, but in our estimation, it shouldn't be a problem.
All right, and again, you are proposing, I haven't heard a direct answer, they are going to be 18-wheelers as opposed to straight, like...
Yeah, they'd be the standard 52-foot trailer.
Okay. All right. And
some of our deliveries will be smaller trucks.
Right.
Coca-Cola might not be a 52-foot trailer. Our wine and beer distributor will probably be an LTL, depending on the load. I mean, rarely ever those full-size semis. So out of those 8 to 10 trucks, 2 to 3 per week will be less than that.
Okay, and of course, potato chip truck might be one of those 25-foot step vans, as one of our plan commission members might be able to tell us.
And you also brought up the question in regards to delivery times, and I know
Yes.
that was brought up as well. In regards to the deliveries and the employee start time, our employees typically start their day at 6 a.m. Okay. And they do have the opportunity to start the day later, but that would be on a non-truck day more than likely. Our estimations for this location for the village of Gurnee, we expect this to be a great location for us and to have good sales volume. So we would expect to have our employees come into the store every day at 6 a.m. And our deliveries, the truck actually should be there for when the employees to come in. They don't come in to an unloading truck. The way Aldi works is we're a lean, mean machine. If you've been in an Aldi, you understand that the stores are ready to rock. There's 3 to 4 employees running the store all day. They have 26 pallets of a load taken care of in 3 hours between a couple of employees. Most retailers don't hire the best, maintain the best, but Aldi does, and we do get that done in the morning. So that's something we take a lot of pride in with our employees and our operational team.
Which brings up my next question. You mentioned the number of employees, which brings up the companion question of the number of parking stalls. You mentioned that the store is going to have 8 to 10 employees, which, assuming they all drive their own separate cars there, you need 8 to 10 parking spots for employees. Do you really anticipate that you're going to need approximately 90 spots for customers at peak times?
Well, we have our internal requirements for us to have a valid site. And 95 parking stalls is our minimum requirement to look at having a valid site. The 8 to 10 employees, like as I mentioned before, you've got 3 to 4 employees at high peak volumes. You do have crossover when you have employees exchanging shifts at midday and whatnot. So I would say, at max we have 3 to 4 employees parking in the parking lot during a normal business hour of the day. But the amount of parking requirements that we have, and for us to have 97 stalls occupied every day, we do not foresee that. But we have to look at this from not only from today, but from 30 years from now. And that's something that we take a lot of time into our internal process of understanding the longevity of a site. And so that's one thing that we do take into consideration as well. During the peak holiday season of Thanksgiving, Christmas, 4th of July, there probably will be days where that entire parking lot will be full. There's all kinds of different events. Super Bowl is almost a national holiday now as well, where we probably have the whole parking lot full.
And if the entire parking lot's full, what type of contingency plan do you have in mind, noting that you do not have the best relationship with the bank at this point?
Ultimately, I hate to say this, but if someone can't find a parking stall, they tend to go to a competitor. And we hope we don't cross that bridge, but that can happen. Ultimately, no matter what, you're always going to have people parking on our property, walking over to the bank, and I'm sure we might have the opportunity where some of our customers might try to park at the bank property and walk across. Bankers' hours versus Aldi hours are pretty opposite. So the bank's usually closed, so I don't foresee that being an issue if we do have the possibility of someone cross-parking, but we do not have that in our current agreement with the bank. But I think we do have a positive relationship with our neighbor, and I think we will approach our neighbor and make sure that we keep a Class A center and hope that they do the same. And they're always going to have that opportunity for people to make those decisions, but I don't foresee that being an issue in those peak high-volume times.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the bank doesn't own that building. It's a private property owner, LLC, that owns it now. So it's not that we're dealing with Fifth Third. All right, Cheryl Ross, and then I'll go to this side. Cheryl, Trustee
I
Ross.
threw the bank's name out there, but obviously
Yeah,
it's the property
it's
owner.
the property owner. Trustee Ross?
I still have a question about the trucks. Would you mind taking the microphone from here and going up and pointing to how they get in, and then they come all the way to the front before they back up? Is that how big the truck is?
So this is a full-size semi, 52-foot trailer. So the trucks will actually come in off of Woodland Terrace, make the left-hand turn in here, and I apologize, these are hard to read. So the truck would come in here. This would be the front of the truck coming up towards the canopy area, and then it'll make a reverse swing into the dock. And then the next slide shows the direct route out through Woodland Terrace down Hutchinson. And in regards to this route, it does show that, and Aldi as a retailer, we wouldn't pursue a site that we couldn't have a semi go in and out of the site. We wouldn't have a truck or a site we would pursue if we couldn't have that go through the safety areas of our building and not have to go through and hit cars possibly. This is, and Matt can explain this in more detail, but this is a very conservative approach in regards to the truck drive. We have sites that are extremely tighter than this with this exact same truck route, and then they are able to maintain and do the route. Now, I know that was brought up before with other questions of how you maintain certain drivers and their abilities, but we do hire, and we are a very large company, and we do make sure that we have safe drivers out there, and we do address any concerns, whether it comes from the village of Gurnee or from a customer or from an employee, and we communicate that directly with our carrier, Black Horse. Is there any questions about it?
Thank you.
Okay.
Let me go to the other side and I'll come back. Trustee Balmas?
In a question then that was addressed by one of the residents, is there parking there along Woodland that will become an issue? And that is not our street as it is right now. So I mean, is there a way to prevent parking along there that's going to become an issue?
Woodland Terrace actually is our street up until Douglas Terrace Drive. So when the bank property was annexed years ago, we took in the entire right-of-way. When and if we annex the Aldi site, the portion that is adjacent to the annexed property, the entire roadway width comes into the village of Gurnee. Right now, I do not believe that Woodland Terrace is noted as a no parking zone. That is completely within our jurisdiction to sign it and legislate it as a no parking zone at that time, if we so choose. For the stretch that is adjacent to the village.
I mean, I could see certainly that would be some concerns for.
I don't know that there's a high parking demand along there right now, but it's definitely something we would be willing to look at and take care of if that's the desire of the village board.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Garner?
School bus stops, where are they currently and what are we proposing?
In talking to the two school districts, I believe there's one right now that picks up on one side of Douglas Terrace and Woodland Terrace, and then the other one is farther north at Edgewood and Woodland Terrace, or sorry, further west, sorry, the maps turn sideways. But like I said, or like Tracy said, they evaluate every year based upon where the school kids are, the ages of the school kids and the bus times, and they change every year where those bus stops picked up, and they can change, based upon what the development traffic is. So those are evaluated every summer before they're set in the fall.
How does the school pickup and drop-off times relate to the delivery times? Is there a way to make sure they don't collide?
Between the three, because I know Woodland School District does three. They have the junior high route, then the intermediate route, then the primary route, then they'll do the midday kindergarten drop-off. So they're, Woodland by itself does probably 3 to 4 pickups and 3 to 4 drop-offs a day. The high school does 2 pickups and 2 drops-off per day, so you've got 6 to 8 bus pickups and drop-offs. And I know Woodland is considering right now changing start times and shuffling their start times for all of their facilities. So, we can communicate with them, let them know what the Aldi store plans are, but it's going to be difficult
based upon the number of bus stops and the routes and that it's going to change every year with the ages of the school kids that are in the area. So that'd be an extremely difficult task to set into stone.
Is it possible to stage the trucks if it arrives at a time when school buses are present?
There's really no place to stage trucks other than on Hutchins Road, and I would not recommend that. But it's one truck, roughly 1 to 1.5 trucks a day that are going to be, conflicting with the school buses at any given time. So if there's a school bus at a stop, the truck will have to wait behind the school bus, just as every other vehicle does. And then once the school bus clears, they can pull into the site. And all the maneuvering for the loading dock is on the site, so they will not be maneuvering out on Woodland Terrace.
Trustee Hood?
I think just a comment for the Aldi's group. I just really appreciate your detail and know that the 11 months that you've gone through and knowing a little bit about the village itself, that I trust that they've really taken care of the details. And appearing before the Plan Commission, I know that you guys have experienced just their questioning and meeting with the residents. I really appreciate that. I think that goes a long way for me to say that you're going to be a good neighbor. And your reputation for Aldi's, at least for me, has come before. Just knowing how you've interacted in other communities, I find that I hope that you're a welcome addition here as well.
Trustee Ross?
Just one more thing on making that a no parking. I think I would wait and see if it's a problem first, because, if the neighbors across to the north want to have a party or something, you don't want to restrict their parking on their own street unless it's a problem.
And there are no driveways that front Woodland Terrace in those 2 blocks.
Oh, really?
They're all off of Douglas Terrace, and then I think the next one over is Edgewood. So there aren't any driveways that come directly out onto Woodland Terrace for these 2 blocks.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Trustee Thornton, did you have a follow-up?
Yes. I'm looking at that map and trying to point where I'm speaking, but when a semi is exiting the property, immediately to the property's west, on the south side of the street looks like there's an arrow right now. Like, it looks like there's 4 employee places is what I'd call it, and 3 employee places, that little carve out. Exactly. Just to the right of that, David, is that tree buffer?
What you're seeing
Is
on the
that
map,
landscaping proposed there?
yeah, what you're seeing on the map here are the utility lines.
Okay.
So I believe that's overhead electric, and
So I heard earlier that there was going to be ample or generous amount of landscaping on the, covering the loading dock area. So it would be the north end of the property. And I just want to make sure that while I am all for that, I also know that there's some overgrown, or I'll call it, not overgrown, but as the vegetation matures, I would hate for that large-looking tree to suddenly become a barrier point of visibility for a vehicle leaving. There's a commercial area like that in town, so I know that, I'm sure it was small at one point and advantageous to cover the exact same, it's a north-facing loading area, but I just would hate for that to present a problem later on.
I can address that to an extent, because we've got 76 stores that we maintain. So just to make sure that the board's aware that Aldi will maintain this entire property. It is a land lease with Kensington Property, the way our deal is structured. And in regards to landscaping, we know with our initial plantings that some type of selection or type of tree along that northern property line there, the larger trees that you do see are an oak variety, which will take a very long time to get to that height. But as you go out, Mike Davis, our landscape designer, he makes sure to take into consideration those blind spot locations and provide more of a hedge bush just to get that clearance of the screening. But if we have blind spot issues, we can always work to replant, work with the village, and we do extensive landscaping in springtime and fall time cleanup and pruning every year. So that's something we will take in consideration, but it's a good point, and we try to stress that every year with the safety of, the public and our customers.
Great, thanks. And you did give me some confidence earlier when you said that this isn't the tightest turns that you presently have. One other last question, I think, is what I heard earlier is that people from Grandwood Park may not try to exit onto Grand, and instead cut through on, I think it's Woodland Terrace, to get to a stoplight. And I know that's not your issue. I'm just wondering, did your traffic patterns monitor that?
You'd have to exit east to get to the traffic light. If you exit west, you come out by the mobile station, and there's no light there.
Right, and what I heard is that it sounded like people may already be, so no increased traffic, but people are wiggling their way through to not have to get out onto Grand and instead do their left turn onto or exit onto Hutchins to go east.
Excuse me, Javier Milan, correct. There's two left turns that are critical. One of them is if you're trying to turn left to go east on Grand. Certainly a lot easier to make the left at a signal than trying to go west and try to make a left and unsignalized and go back. The other left that was a concern was, well, what about anybody coming from the west on Grand? Are they going to make a left on, pardon me, but I forgot the name of the street, and the unsignalized one, Grand Avenue. No, I'm sorry. On the other one, it's easier to make a left crossing Grand Avenue at a signal than unsignalized. So the amount of traffic that we anticipated, based on the existing travel patterns, like I mentioned, is basically the residential area, and there's quite a bit of residential to the north and to the west. So that's what we anticipate. Traffic that would be cutting through to go to an unsignalized intersection or come from an unsignalized intersection, very unlikely. Most of them are going to prefer to use the signal.
Okay. Thank you. I used to live in Grandwood Park when I first came to Gurnee, so I was thinking about all of those things that we used to do ourselves. Thanks.
All right, Trustee Jacobs?
I'm still not convinced by the total number of parking spots, but this is a question more for staff than you guys at this point. But if we were to say that they needed to take out whatever 2 or 3 spots to get to that magic 10% level for greenery, would that greenery, would that be required to go into the parking lot area, or would that greenery be required to go into the buffer area?
That 10% is interior to the parking lot, so if they took out, I think it was 3 parking spaces, they could get to that.
Okay. Thank you, Tracy.
2? No. 2 parking spaces.
Okay.
Sure.
All right, Tom, one more thing. We had some questions over the last week on Aldi's hiring practice with special needs or handicapped, and then Aldi's has a community program, and how would you operate that here locally?
So to address your 2 questions, when it comes to the hiring portion with the company, they look to hire qualified candidates that can meet all the job requirements. And that's something that I don't get involved with the hiring process, so I can't answer the technical questions in regards to the hiring with the operational side, because I've been out of the operational hiring side for 7 years, so I don't know if I really want to answer the specifics in regards to that portion of it. I just know that we anticipate to have around 10 full-time employees with 2 casual employees. And then our local programs, that's new to Aldi that we've kind of incorporated now. So if we were to be opening a store here in Gurnee in 2019, our actual corporate division out of Oak Creek, Wisconsin, does do local involvement with our operational team. They choose different events each year to sponsor, so there is a very good opportunity for our operational team once we go through the process and get the introductions at a grand opening event and working with the village, doing all those different aspects with our local involvement. There are those new opportunities now that are present, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hold on, Trustee Garner?
Just on that 8 to 10 employees to run a store, does that also include management?
Yes, it does. So our typical staff for what we have here estimated would be to have a store manager with a store manager and then 4 shift managers. I apologize, I think they created a new title for the shift manager, and then the store associates as well. And then we also have new employees. We also hire now casual stockers and casual cashiers. So out of the 10 full-time employees, 5 of those members would be management.
What does casual mean?
Part-time, 32 hours or less per week.
All right, Trustee Thornton, you had another question?
Just one last one, sorry. So I was the one that researched your Smart Kids program and brought it to the mayor's attention. And I also visited your property over in Waukegan over the weekend, and it's very nice. So
Thank
I
you.
commend you for that. So the Smart Kids program, or I'll say efforts into our communities for charities, is very important to me. And so if you can possibly explain that that program would make something available to us potentially annually, that would be great.
If you would like, after the meeting, I can give you my business card and get your information, and I can work with my director of operations and my vice president to give you the details of that program, because I don't have that information on hand with me tonight, but I can work with you since that's near and dear to you as we go through this process, because, I mean, John wants me to open the store tomorrow, but I know that realistically we're looking at maybe late fall 2019, so that would give me a lot of opportunities throughout the construction process to come down here and meet with you and explain those details or bring my operational team, which I'd like to do.
That's great. I already introduced your program to the head of our Warren Special Recreation Association, and I think she was already applying. So
Great.
I would love to be able to have more good discussions on that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, any other questions from the trustees? Otherwise, I'm going to go through each of these individually for a vote.
Is there any more from the, one gentleman had his hand up earlier, I didn't know whether.
Sir, we'll have public comment again at the end of the meeting. I had public comment at the beginning. This wasn't a public hearing, so I have public comment again at the end. All right, I'll read number 1 into the record again. Approval of ordinance 2018-79, annexing and rezoning a 2.5-acre parcel located at 18824 West Grand Avenue. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Motion by trustee Garner, second by trustee Jacobs. Roll call, please, Andy.
Jacobs.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
Balmas.
Aye.
Hood.
Yes.
Thorstenson.
Yes.
6 aye.
All right, motion carries. Welcome to the village. All right, item number 2, approval of ordinance 2018-80, granting a variation pursuant to the Gurnee zoning ordinance to allow a parking lot to encroach into the required 25-foot Grand Avenue setback on property located at 18824 West Grand Avenue. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Motion by trustee Thornton, second by trustee Balmas. Roll call, please, Andy.
Jacobs.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
Balmas.
Aye.
Hood.
Yes.
Thorstenson.
Yes.
6 aye.
Motion carries. Approval of ordinance 2018-81, granting a variation pursuant to the Gurnee zoning ordinance to allow a reduction in the separation requirement between 2 curb cuts on West Woodland Terrace for property located at 18824 West Grand Avenue. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Balmas, second by trustee Ross. Roll call, please, Andy.
Jacobs.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
Balmas.
Aye.
Hood.
Yes.
Thorstenson.
Yes.
6 aye.
Motion carries. Approval of ordinance 2018-82, granting a special use permit to allow a reduction in the percentage of green space interior to a parking lot on property located at 18824 West Grand Avenue. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Garner, second by trustee Balmas. Roll call, please, Andy.
Jacobs.
Sorry, but I got to be a nay on this one.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
Balmas.
Aye.
Hood.
Yes.
Thorstenson.
Yes.
5 aye, 1 nay.
Motion carries. Item number 5, approval of ordinance 2018-83, granting a special use permit to allow a reduction to the transparency percentage for the north and south elevations on property located at 18824 West Grand Avenue. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Jacobs.
Second.
Second by trustee Thorstenson. Roll call, please, Andy.
Jacobs.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
Balmas.
Aye.
Hood.
Yes.
Thorstenson.
Yes.
6 aye.
Motion to approve. Welcome to the village, Aldi's. And if someone will help me remember to follow up on the no parking and working with the township on that whole stretch, and with the schools, I think over the next couple of months before they open, we'll be able to address those concerns. All right, that's the end of our new business tonight. So I will reopen the floor for public comment. If you'd like to come to the microphone and state your name. The microphone's right behind you, sir.
Thanks. Good luck.
Okay. Okay. Tracy or David? All right, sir. All right, sir.
Mayor's got it.
Sir. I'm sorry, my voice isn't that loud.
I have a loud enough voice to go, but yeah. Can you put the slides up, please? About the third or fourth slide. Yeah, should help. The one before the stop sign and after the stop, and the one with the stop sign on the bank property. Do you need me to say my name again?
Yeah, just.
All right, my name is David Day. I live at 36119 Douglas Terrace. I will show you my piece of property as soon as the slide comes up. I was hoping you wouldn't turn it off, but you did.
Now you gotta turn it back on. It went off.
Ah, beautiful visual presentations. That's one slide that we're going to need to use. One more back. Nope, that's the wrong way. There we go. All right. Here is Mr. Traffic Manager says 45% of the people are going to come into here, through here. That's my understanding. Is that correct, sir?
No, sir, this is not
Okay.
a discussion.
All right, 45% of the people are
going
to come into here. All right, and over here, there's going to be, all right, people coming into here. Trucks need to come in here and make a left turn. One person makes a sitting at the stop sign, guy never is going to make that left turn. Two, making a right turn out of here, out of Woodland onto Hutchins, going to be dang near impossible. People want to make a left turn onto there. Number three, all right, as I told you before, is coming on into here. And now, last but not least, this is where you are going to have the biggest conundrum. And I challenge any board member to go there anytime before 10 o'clock at night. To just go up Hutchins, come on over here, come into the bank, go through the banks right here, and try to get out onto Grand Avenue. Now, right now, their traffic pattern is going to come, people are going to come up over here and come into here. And they're going to come out here, and they're going to go down there. All right? And people are going to be coming out of the bank, and they're going to try to get out of there. All right? And this is all going to be really, really fun to watch as time develops.
as more and more, especially holiday seasons, as that, because this traffic's going to back on up, and it's going to continue to back on up, right? And these people will not be able to take a left turn into Aldi's, right? And they're going to end up going like this through the bank, and they're going to end up going over there, up and around, because there's no access over here, because the bank won't allow it. The bank owner, property owner, won't allow it. All right, your next slide. All right, so this is your proposal, is to put these stop signs. Put the stop sign here, put a stop sign here, put a stop sign on the bank, on the property here to here, all right, put a do not enter going that way, and a stop sign here. And I say, all I want to do is just try to get through here, onto here, and get onto Grand Avenue almost any time during the day. if you go one more back again, I am that property right here. That one right there, across from the bank. This is the handicapped child's stop. They stop right in front of his driveway. Okay, that's the only type of thing. All right, so that's the thing that you have to consider, is the traffic pattern. And I tried to address when we first come on in. Right? Trucks are not going to be able to maneuver that easily as you think. All right? Because that's all going to start to back on up. And then if it backs up here, you got a 52-foot truck sitting right here trying to make a left turn. All right? You got people trying to make a left turn onto here because they're coming eastbound. The only way that they can access. If this ever backs up, all right, there's no way you're going to have a traffic mayhem.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you, sir. Here, I'll take the microphone.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment?
My name is George Kuhn. I live at 36147 North Douglas Terrace. May I use the...
Oh, sure.
Thank you. As Mr. Dade presented, and I apologize for my shortness, but right here is exactly what he's talking about, the trucks. I've lived in my house, I lived 3 houses down from him. In the 30 years I've been there, this part has always been run over by trucks, big rivets. Who's going to pay for that? Gurnee, because you just annexed them to use that. You get anybody that is parked here, or even in this direction, because there's no sign that says you can't park there. And again, try to get an 18-wheeler in there, damage to that property. Here, when I looked at the old sketch here, this opening to Aldi's is no wider than North Douglas Terrace. And the projected, and I want to use the word projected, truck route, that's projection. That's not reality. And I challenge the board to get a semi-truck to go up and make that left-hand turn. A couple of instances. Have a person right there trying to make a right-hand turn or left-hand turn on Hutchins and have that semi-truck try to move. If you get anything here, we've had issues where they parked a semi-truck trailer there. Anybody going eastbound on Woodland and anybody coming down from the east side, guess what? You've just now blocked an easement going across. My biggest issue here is safety. And apparently, everyone wants to keep moving things to pacify Aldi's. They don't live in this village. They don't even live in this area. And like I said, I've been here 30 years. It's been a quiet, peaceful resident. I wouldn't have moved from North Chicago if I didn't feel that Gurnee and the surrounding communities was a place to raise 5 girls. And I do have a handicapped daughter. So, some of you that brought up questions concerning that, I applaud you. And the rest of you, nothing. Because you don't live in that neighborhood. one day we might be annexed into the village of Gurnee. I'm one vote. And I've got a lot of constituents that are voters too. So what I'm asking all these was, they were going to use this to open it up there. Why not work with the owner of this property? They're saying they can't give you another entrance or egress, then widen this out, make the truck come through here, right in through there. But I was told that IDOT won't allow it. Well, how much persuasion did they do? Then how much persuasion or proposition did they do for the bank to allow Aldi to use this? But I challenged the board to put a semi-truck right there to make that left-hand turn off of Hutchins to Woodland. And I pray to God that a child doesn't get killed because of inadvertent haste of a truck driver trying to make his deliveries. And again, there was one other question that was brought up. What happens if you get two trucks and one's already in the slot trying to unload the products, and you got another one? Where's that truck going to be parked at? I guarantee you if he parks anywhere in there, again, we got that roadblock. You know, they did a very good job presenting it, but they don't live here. And that one gentleman that was the so-called highway engineer, he had a camera sitting on a telephone pole for 2 days. How are you going to do anything or project or even see what the traffic patterns are? And I emphasize, I've seen a lot. But again, you people don't live in that neighborhood. But you are the trustees. So when I look at each one of you, God forbid if a child gets hurt because you want to annex business into there. I have no problem bringing in business. That's more tax revenue for Gurnee. I appreciate the time, but please think of what I just said. God forbid if a child ever gets killed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Balmas, second by trustee Jacobs. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned.